if you want, otherwise we'll take questions.
Obviously, we're happy to be sitting here 2-0, but the schedule is only going to get harder moving forward. Southern Illinois has a good basketball team. They're very well coached. Scott Nagy's won a bunch of basketball games. They play at a fast pace, which should bode well for us, considering the last two teams that we've played have been the opposite. So it should be a fun and exciting game, and hopefully we can put together 40 minutes, because that's our biggest dilemma right now.
How's the team kind of responded since Saturday or
Good.
Sunday?
Yeah, we watched a ton of film on. So what did we play? We played on Sunday. We watched a ton of film on Monday, just to make sure that they understand, some of the defensive effort and some of the defensive discipline just isn't acceptable. If we're going to be an NCAA caliber team, or we're going to be successful in the Big 12, we've got to be better, and that's everyone. So we went through a lot of that, and then we practiced a little bit Monday, and then we practiced a normal day today.
Are there consistent things that you've noticed that have needed tweaking, or has it just been one thing here, one thing there?
Yeah, no, it's a ton, and they're all rolled together. I mean, it all starts with being able to guard the basketball, but that's going to be the case, anytime you talk to a basketball coach. He's going to say that you have to guard the ball and keep it in front, because if you don't, now somebody's got to come help, and now you're in rotations, and now you're always playing from behind, or you're playing catch up, and that's just not what you want. There's a lot of coaches that kind of sit back in the gaps and play a pack line D, very similar to St. Thomas, because they don't want to get in those rotations. So we've got to figure out a way to be aggressive, yet still be able to keep the basketball in front of us and guard the ball.
Would it be fair to say some of this is normal this part of the year for defense?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm sure you're not going to talk to anybody in the Big 12 that thinks their defense was great. I'm sure if we watched Coach Sampson's press conference after Auburn the other night, he probably was frustrated with some things. So, yeah, I think that that's a very fair statement, but that's not an excuse, right? We have to be better.
Are there things that maybe you couldn't learn about this team in practice that these first two games have showed you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get into competition, right, you learn more and more about people. I was disappointed with the way that we handled, or that certain individuals handled, some adversity on Sunday, and I talked to those guys about that and watched film with them, and we've got to get it fixed. But yeah, I mean, practice and games, at times are two totally different things. With that being said, we try to make practice as hard as we can so that we discover these things prior to. And I'm not to tell you that the non-conference slate is not important, because it absolutely is, in terms of seeding, in terms of giving yourself an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. But it's also trying to prepare you for the Big 12, because that's what, ultimately that's where you're judged.
Any big picture things that you mentioned that have stood out from the games that you maybe didn't see at practice?
Yeah, well, the highs and the lows, right? In every game, football, basketball, whatever, you're gonna have ebbs and flows to the games, but you can't have high highs and low lows, right? You've got to try to remain as consistent as you can, and we'll go 3-4 possessions where we get 3 or 4 stops, but then we'll come down and maybe take 2 or 3 bad shots or 2 or 3 bad threes, and you've just wasted it. And we've done a good job of getting some leads. We've not done a good job of taking those leads to the next level and finishing people off.
Coach, honestly, you talked a lot about how Bryce being one of the leaders. Is that something that you've asked him to do coming to the season, or is that something you just naturally fit?
I think Bryce has a natural leadership about him. Obviously I didn't know him real well prior to arriving here, but from the day you meet him, he's got a great presence about him, and he's wired the right way. I think it's partly hereditary or God-given, however you want to say it, and then partly I think that he works at it. He wants to be a leader. He was the leading vote getter in terms of voting for captains, and he rightfully so he should be. But he's also got to be consistent with it. And Bryce does a great job of taking care of his business, a great job of it. Now, we've got to make sure that you take care of your business and then make sure your teammates are okay as well. That's the next step in leadership.
You hit on it earlier about the review of the video, and I actually asked the players, without giving up trade secrets or team secrets, what the routine was in video review of games. What's your routine? How much do you look at it before you look at it with them, so forth?
At least once, probably twice. I've watched it before I watch it with the team the next day. So our normal pattern is that after the game, the staff will grade the film. And when I say grade the film, you're going through every possession and you're saying, hey, Arturo made a good defensive play here. He made a bad defensive play here. Bryce made a great defensive play here. He didn't box out. And you just collect information so that at the end of the film grading, each kid has anywhere from probably 5 to 50 clips. And then, they'll come in and they'll have to watch film with the offensive and defensive coaches. And then so now you'll watch yourself on film and you'll be able to understand, hey, this is what, coach was yelling at me about. And hopefully, you're learning through listening, you're learning through seeing, and then you're learning through repetition there in practice because we're trying to fix those mistakes. And then, the next morning, we'll sit down with the guys and we'll have teaching clips. We'll have good offense, bad offense. We'll have good defense. We'll have bad defense. And then I always talk with the teams about runs. And runs within the game are, maybe we get a great defensive stop and we get a score on this end and that puts us up by 10. But then the next possession down here, right, we give up a 3. Then we shoot a bad shot. And then we give up a layup or we foul them. And then we shoot another bad shot or we turn the ball over. Well, that swing there is going to range anywhere from probably 11 to 15, 16 points. And those swings within the game, if you have too many of those bad ones, man, you can't recover.
They said you stressed defense in the film review from Sunday. One thing, and I was just watching at my desk at home while I was working, so I wasn't locked in. Okay, I apologize. But I sensed a different continuity offensively from the first half to the second.
Well, my first question is who do you work for? Because they're probably not going to be real happy with you that you're not paying attention at work. But to answer
I was working on the football review stuff and trying to keep track and watch basketball at the same time. So I was trying to what do they call it, multitask?
You're a multitasker.
Well, no, I'm really not, obviously, but I was trying.
All right, that's what you get for not being here the other day. I'm going to give you grief right back at you.
And I can handle it. I get it.
To answer your direct question, you're asking if our offense was better in the second half than it was in the first half?
Better in the first, I thought.
It absolutely was better in the first half. And that was largely due to the fact that in the second half we didn't share the ball. We took bad shots. But more importantly, we didn't play good enough defense to allow our defense to get back in transition and get set.
Help your offense.
Yeah, you're playing from behind.
When the guys came through here and talked about defense, they said that across the board, I think they said the biggest problem was just communication. How do you sort of get them to go from where they are now to where they need to be, is just communicating?
And I'm open to suggestions on that one. We try and correct mistakes as they happen within practice, but at the end of the day, you're almost pleading to their core, right? And that they're good people and good players, and that they truly do want to win. Because if you want to win, you're going to tell your teammate, hey, I have the ball, you go take this guy, or I've got your help here, and if you're not and you're too much into yourself, you're not going to do those things. Now, ultimately, it's all going to come out in the wash and you're just not going to play. But, we're appealing to their core and just trying to get them to see and understand that 90% of what we're doing is communication. And if we can be great in our communication, we can fix a lot of our other mistakes.
Is that just, I don't know, and maybe there's not a definitive answer because everybody's different, but is that just guys get so locked in on what their assignment is that they forget to communicate, or?
Man, I'd say it's a multitude of reasons. I think, your overall discipline, that'll be part of it. Your fatigue will be part of it. The selfishness will be a part of it. Wanting to go score on the other end versus wanting to be a great defender is part of it. I mean, there's so many different things that go into that. And at different points in times within the game, at different points in time within the practice, you'll see it. It'll come out and you'll just be like, that's not good. But then, maybe 2 plays later they'll be fantastic. Yeah. And so you've got to just find a level of consistency.
It feels like through the first 2 games, if the ball's on the floor, you guys have been the first to the floor. Is that something you stress? Because it seemed like maybe the opponent's been a little surprised that somebody would even die for a ball that you guys.
Yeah, we absolutely stress playing hard, and we talk a lot about the ball's the most important thing, and the ball is valuable, and you have to value every possession. So, you're always trying to, we've talked about this before, you're always trying to get more possessions than the other guy. So how do you get it? Through turnovers, through free throws, through offensive rebounds, but you got to get 2 loose balls, the 50-50 balls. You got to win that battle. Then you got to kick their tail on the offensive boards, and then you got to make them foul you and get to the free throw line. And then when you add all those up, that's winning basketball. So I think that's a small part of our culture and our fabric and who we are and who we have to be consistently.
With an emphasis on defense, which you stated and the players stated, how have you graded this group on help defense? So
not great. Yeah, I mean, they'll tell you. I mean, there's times where our defense is really, really good, and then there's some times where we're just, I don't want to say absent-minded, but we just don't perform. We just don't do it. And then, there's those times where we get behind, and so now we go help, and then we forget to help the helper, right? And it just steamrolls. So, no, I think we've got a ton of growth in that area. It's not to say they don't try. They just have to be consistent with their discipline. Our word of the week this week is discipline. And it will be disciplined on the offensive and defensive end. For 40 minutes, I think we'll have a good shot at being a good team. And if we're not, then we're just going to be average.
Time for maybe one more.
Any updates on Abu?
Yeah, he's practiced yesterday, practiced today. He's been doing fine.
Do you expect to have him on
I do.
Thursday?
I expect him to have available. Yep.